She's gonna leave.
Okay, you can see yourself over there.
You're on.
Okay, hi, welcome to Thinking Green. And before I introduce our guests here, just want to let you know about next week, October 10th. The host is Rana Stuller, and the guests are Dot Nielsen and singer-songwriter Kayla Farnharn. So today we have New London Parent Advocates, and we are here to talk about parent engagement in our New London public schools. So, Regina?
Okay, my name is Regina Nicholson. I'm a parent of 3 daughters, 1 7, 1 12, and 1 14, respectively, at the Regional Multicultural Magnet School, Benny Dover Jackson Middle School, and the Science Tech Magnet High School.
And I am Munji Dawedi. I have 3 kids in the public school, well, up until this past year. I have my daughter, 17-year-old, she attends the Magnet School. And then I have Selma. This year she went to Ledyard High School. And Salah, who graduated from Jennings last year, and he's attending Isaac this year.
I'm Myrna Martinez. I have 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. My son does not go to school yet. My daughter is at the Multicultural Regional Magnet School, and I am a teacher by trade, and I only say that because I think at some points that's the perspective that I come from.
And my name is Chris Soto. I'm the director of the College Access Program, and I don't have any children, but I work every day with students from New London Public Schools and parents from New London Public Schools, and very interested in this conversation around parent engagement.
I hope that kids didn't discourage you from having kids in the future.
No, not at all. Not at all.
He works with all the kids because essentially they are all our children. Even if we didn't give birth to them or we're not the parents of them, as parents we take it upon ourselves once we have children of our own to take on that role of all the children in the community. At least that's the way I see myself. I want to be approachable and be approached by other families, other children. Come, see us, talk to us, learn about us, and let us learn about you, because ultimately your success is what we're here for.
Yeah, I see Chris as that you do parent kids in school, kids in our community, just not full-time. So do you want to introduce our group?
Well, I wanted to talk actually, we'll start from this point, which is all the kids in New London are our kids, and that's kind of the feeling that the parent group that we are trying to put together is all about. I mean, many parents that sometimes they come to us and they say, well, why are you doing this? I mean, it seems like your kids are doing fine in school and you're happy with the product that you're getting. And my answer always that even if my kids are doing well in school, I don't want my kids to be going to a failing school. I don't want to belong to a community that has a major issue when it comes to education, because I know the ramification of this goes well beyond our kids and well beyond just the school walls. And so from that concern of ours...
Can you speak to that? What do you mean, the ramifications of what?
Well, and hopefully tonight we can expand on that point. Statistics-wise, for example, according to the governor, he said that the state and the local and the federal government will lose $500,000 for every kid that does not graduate from high school. I mean, think about that for a second. That's $500,000 that we lose because we lose a kid that doesn't graduate from high school. We know for a fact in many studies that show that, and I believe there was a Christian Science Monitor published a study that shows that kids who do not go to college, kids who do not graduate from high school, that don't get far enough into their education, it affects the way they live, it affects their health, it affects the city and the local place where they live in terms of taxes will go up because you don't have enough revenues coming in, you provide more services for them because they don't have enough education, they don't make enough money. And so all these ramifications, there's almost like a dominoes effect, that if we do not invest in our kids' education today, we will pay for it somehow in the future.
I think that there's just no other way but to segue into you, because that's what the experience that you have as far as working with our kids and graduating them from making sure they graduate and how it is that they have access into college. So maybe you want to talk about the College Access Program.
No, thank you. And I think, what we try to promote is that there's two important decisions you'll make in your life, the most important decisions, and one is, you know, who you potentially marry, or your spouse, for the rest of your life. We're not in the business of hooking anybody up, but the second the second most important is the decision that you make after high school, and whether that's you know, playing PlayStation, whether it's going to a trade school, or whether it's going to college, whatever it is, whatever decision you make, that opens and closes the doors for the rest of your life. And so, and just to hit on your point, it's about the census data also showed that it's about $1 million over a lifetime that a college graduate based compared to, you know, non-college graduate makes over a lifetime. So about $1 million. And you know, the points that you made about civic engagement and taxes, I mean, all that stuff is validated already. But yeah, you know, we're just trying to guide students to making a good decision as soon as they graduate from high school. And what we're finding is that we have so many capable students in New London that can succeed in higher education, or can succeed at some type of trade school, but they're falling through the cracks at their senior year. So, so there are so many students that are capable, because I think that there's a discussion about, oh, well, what are you doing to get them prepared for once they graduate in order to succeed beyond high school? Mm-hmm. And what we're finding is that we have a whole crop of students that are already capable and prepared, but they're not even going on to that next step because they don't have the guidance, they don't have the support.
Do you mean guidance and support within the schools? Like, is that where one of the big obstacles is?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's not about pointing fingers. It's just about understanding that we are in tough fiscal times, and that resources get cut. And we make a statement when we decide where to cut those resources.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, there are priorities, and we all just need to...
And it goes back to understanding the ramifications. So if we say, okay, we're going to cut a guidance counselor, or we're going to cut the career center, what are the ramifications of that, and are we okay with that? Because that sends some type of statement to our community when we do that.
Right. And that brings us, you know, back to probably the main issue that we the whole discussion around education centered on a few months ago, before the summer, when the talk about the budget and all this issue. And people were saying, you know, well, you already have enough money. I mean, why aren't we seeing the results? I mean, why should we keep pouring money on bad system? And so, unfortunately, when you look back 5 years, this is the 5th year in a row where the City of New London have flat funded the education, public education in New London. I mean, we are the only city in the whole state of Connecticut that have done that. I mean, I don't think New London wants to be known for that. I think we should look at funding education as an investment, like you were talking about, Chris, on our kids. Definitely there are some problems within the system that needs to be addressed. Maybe there are some efficient ways of running things that maybe we can save money, absolutely. But you cannot justify flat funding education for 5 years in a row when you have the wages of teachers are going up, services of contracts are going up, healthcare is going up, the number of kids you're serving is going up. I mean, we have for a fact this year alone at Benny Dover Jackson Middle School, we are operating with $800,000 less money, serving more kids compared to last year. I mean, there is no way you can tell me that that's not going to affect directly education. Kids are already struggling. And if we are, you know, preventing them from having access to at least the resources that they need, enough resources at least, to succeed, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And so this is what New London Parents Advocates is all about. We don't claim to have the solutions to all these problems. We don't claim to know more than anybody else. We are just parents who want to make a difference. And we said, first, we notice that parents are not at the table. A lot of times when these decisions, these discussions take place, whether at the city level, state level, Board of Education level, a lot of times parents are not there. I mean, it's up until the time when our group started to get involved and we started asking people to wear red to the meetings. That's when people started noticing that more and more parents are coming to these meetings. And so hopefully this is a momentum. You know, Myrna, you can expand on that, on what are the ways that we were talking about, discussed it, about how to reach out to the parents who do not hear about Board of Ed meetings. Some of them might feel intimidated by the Board of Ed meetings and the format and the language that's spoken in there. Many of them, including myself. Many times we go to the Board of Ed meeting and we sit down and we don't quite understand what they're talking about. I mean, when are we supposed to speak? Are they supposed to answer us? Is anybody going to come back with a and all of this stuff is new to many parents, and we try to kind of demystify this stuff to parents through this group that's going to hopefully, our goal is in the long run to reach out to parents all across New London.
Yeah, no, I'm actually just going to expand on that involvement, though, because one of the recurring themes that we've talked about is that during this, well, I guess we're still kind of in it, but during this past fiscal situation at City Council figuring out the budget, when before we even knew that the budget was going to be flat funded for the schools, we weren't having parents show up to speak about the budget, in favor of the budget during city council meetings, but the firefighters were just consistently there in dozens at a time. And as we see, the results is that they were funded and we are not. And so it makes a difference for us to get together and voice ourselves about what our priorities, because I think you can clearly see it from district to district, where you have the districts where families are involved. You see there's a different culture of how the schools react to the parents, because they are a force that in a sense are demanding to be responded to. And so and it's, once again, not to put blame on anyone, but it is, I think, just a naturally occurring human thing that happens. If I stand up and wave my arms more and make more noise, then you might notice me a little bit more than if I don't. So I just wanted to point out that we do need to get involved and come together. And like you said, Munji, that we don't necessarily have the answers, but together that we do have that much more resources. We do have, you come to the table with what you know, and you with what you know, and all together it becomes more powerful. So what do we think, in looking at this from a solutions perspective, what do we think that prevents parents from getting involved?
I think it's a broad spectrum of lack of communication. Like you spoke on before, there is in some areas a language barrier. There are translators at the board meetings. There, of course, the New London Parent Advocates, we have translated, we have dual language, so that's something that we're proud of, so that more people can come to the table.
Yeah.
I think some parents don't get involved because they're afraid. Maybe because of their own lack of education, or the way that they did in school themselves. They don't want to feel like they're stepping in, not able to advocate appropriately for their children because of their lack of education. So I think sometimes that holds people back from coming in. I'm a big one about retaliation against their students. I think some parents don't come in because they don't want their child to be attacked later on, maybe by a teacher or by administration. And I haven't experienced that myself, and I haven't heard of any parent that has, but it is a reality and it does happen in some areas. So I think sometimes that holds people back from speaking up and coming forward. So I'm hoping that we can get enough people to meet with us, that we can reflect a variety of parents, concerns and opinions.
Yeah.
And I think it's important also, you mentioned an excellent point, which is the factor of intimidation, the factor of fear. Maybe if I come and speak about an issue that maybe somehow the teachers are not going to like it, or the administration is not going to like it, and so they might retaliate against my son or daughter, which our group is trying to kind of reverse that perception. It is a perception. It's not a reality. We have not seen anybody who came and spoke and then there's a retaliation. What we're saying is that people might perceive this, and our group is trying to say, look, we come up, we speak on issues, and actually that increases the awareness and increases the involvement of teachers. Now they realize that this parent really cares about their kid's education. So let me talk to them about the homework that this kid missed last week. Let me tell them about what other resources that their kid might have to help them in their work. And so actually we encourage parents to come and speak, because what they will find is actually more help, not hinder the education of their kids.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that has bothered me recently is when you hear this conversation that parents are not involved. And I think that sometimes stems from what their perception is of what involved means, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes we give excuses as to why parents are involved, you know, income or, you know, single parent or whatever the case may be, and we throw these excuses. And I just, you know, personally, I guess I'm kind of speaking selfishly, but I look at my program and these are all, you know, first-gen low-income families, and all the parents are engaged. And so my point is that if you redefine what it means to be involved, then they're going to be involved. And parents are going to be involved, because parents do care about their children and they want to be involved in that growth. But if it's based on your definition, which is an old definition, and it hasn't changed over 20, 30, or 40 years of what parental engagement means, then obviously, you know, parents are not going to be involved. So I think that we definitely have the capacity here to have a whole bunch of parents involved, as long as we figure out new ways and new strategies to do it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. One of the things that you're offering in your program is that you have that language accessibility for a lot of our families, and so just having a bit of a different the way that things are offered. I mean, that is a big access. Like, one of the things that we talk about is childcare. You know, like you're coming home, you've got to make dinner, you've got your kids to watch. Like, what do you do? And we now have childcare at the Board of Ed meetings, and it's going to be something that, you know, hopefully little by little people start to realize that it's there and that it's something else that, but if we change the culture of what's expected, if instead of expecting that it's just a place for adults to come to, yes, there's a place for that, but it's also a place that is about families, and so therefore changing the culture so that families are welcome. You know, there's just a way that we have to do that.
Absolutely, and I think that's one thing that this group, the New London Parent Advocates, brings to the table, is that, look, we know that this is a complex problem, right? I mean, there are pieces of this whole issue which is common sense, right? I mean, we looked at for example, the Board of Ed meetings, and we said, okay, what are the reasons usually parents don't come to this? I mean, look at the statistics. We have more than 60% of parents in New London who have their kids in the public school are single parents. That means that parent has to be somewhere. If they are at the Board of Ed meetings, their kids have to have somebody else watching them, somebody else going to have to take care of their dinner, somebody else to make sure that they go do their homework and go to bed on time. So one of the solutions we offer, and I think, Myrna, you know, you did an excellent job speaking on behalf of this group with Dr. Fisher and arranging and making sure that now the Board of Ed offers babysitting, offers someone in there that's going to take care of the kids if you want to come to the Board of Ed meetings. Other solutions that we suggested to them, and hopefully that we can come to, and I think this is, you know, now with the technology and the, you know, the social media, there are ways that we can, like you said, to redefine what does it mean to have parents engaged in the system, is we can offer them different ways to attend. I mean, we know now that many politicians, for example, hold town hall meetings through Facebook. Well, wherever you are sitting in your living room, you can still be engaged in a meeting, asking maybe questions, or at least follow the process. And I think this should be, and it could be done, and I'm absolutely sure that we have capable high school kids in our magnet school in New London. If we give them this as their senior project and says, we want the Board of Ed meetings to be broadcasted every time or twice a month, whatever it is, via Facebook, on the internet, so anybody who has a smartphone or have a laptop sitting at a coffee shop somewhere, or sitting on their, you know, couch at night watching their kids, they can still follow what's going on. I am absolutely sure that some of those high school kids will be able to do it.
Yeah, well, and I think another important point to consider is that it's not a silver bullet, right? So these strategies that we do, it's about changing the culture. So, and it's not going to happen overnight. And so I think sometimes we'll try a new initiative or try something, and then third meeting, you know, someone will say, oh, well, we have babysitters here. Why aren't the parents here now? You know, and it's because we're changing the culture. It's not about how many people show up that night, you know, and so that's also something important to understand, that this is a process and that there are multiple strategies to achieve it.
Absolutely, it's going to take time. I mean, this is not...
I think what else needs to be said about the child care, and I was just made aware of this information. We did rally for the child care. We did ask that it was part of the community service portion for the students that came. Well, I was made aware that any student that comes to the Board of Education meeting can sign up, and they'll get credit for their community service. Then the high school students, they need 60 hours of community service. They can come to the Board of Education meeting and sign up to do the child care for maybe a half hour or an hour and get credit towards their community service. And at the same time, they're able to then, once they complete that, come into the board meeting and learn about this process so that they can be active in the education process in the board meetings as well. So I think that's definitely something that's important, and that parents can tell their kids, you know, you can do this for your community service and we can go to the board meeting at the same time. So we both benefit.
Yeah, I think that's great. Any way that we can engage the community as a whole, that it's not just necessarily parents with the school, or it's not just these one-way connections, but it's within more of a network of engaging our students and our schools and ourselves. It's that much more powerful. I was going to ask a question that I forgot. How is it that you guys think that we should or that the schools should seek to engage the parents or involve us in conversations? What do you think about? We're talking about change of culture, and up to this point, we haven't been greatly invited to be a part of the conversations about the changes going on in the schools. How do you think that would best be done?
I think now you're touching the great elephant in the room, right? I mean, which is the change that took place in New London, and now we don't only have a Board of Ed that was elected by the people in New London, but now we have also an appointed special master by the state of Connecticut because of many reasons, and I think we all kind of followed through the process and the kind of painful, some painful moments that we saw when the superintendent asked the state to intervene. The state answered back by, I think asking for an audit, or I think based on an audit and the ask from the superintendent, they appointed a special master. Now, where do we go from here? According to what we saw, and when we attended, Myrna and I and other parents, we went to the state and we attended the hearing that the commissioner held about the New London, and also talked about Wyndham, which was also kind of like an advanced stage of what New London was. And we realized that the special master, one of his main tasks is to come in here and develop a strategic operating plan. This is supposed to be a long-range, developing the vision for the school, goals, ways how to achieve these goals, and to engage many different parties involved: the city, the politicians, community members, parents, administration staff, and all that. So, and we looked at the plan that Mr. Adamowski he developed for Wyndham, and then we said, okay, we should be expecting something like this for New London. And the question that we kept asking is twofold. One is that, are we supposed to wait until a plan is developed and then we will be told that the parents are going to have this part to play? Or are we going to be invited to the table to at least listen to some of our concerns, maybe listen to some of our suggestions, or any things that we can come up with and say, together, or after listening to your concerns, with your input, we are going to develop a plan that's going to involve everybody. So far, I think the only answer, or at least a hint of an answer, came from Mr. Morris, saying that it looks like we're going to wait until a plan is developed and that we will play. And I could be mistaken because I couldn't stay.
No,
so it's a concern of ours. It's a concern of our group that are we, the parents, are this going to be status quo, just like it used to be before? Parents just come in, have that 3 minutes for each person to voice their opinion at the Board of Ed meeting, and then maybe we'll answer you, maybe we won't. And then the conversation, that's the end of the conversation. And I think that's not enough. That's not enough for our group. That's not enough for our parents. I think we need more than that.
Am I hearing you right? Are you saying that the difference maybe is between being authentically engaged versus being given a tagline that this is where we fit?
Right.
Yeah,
So
we're
this is
not
your
looking
role.
for a tagline because we've already been given a tagline. We've been in our place. We need to be on the PTO. We need to be on the PTC. We need to be here. And this is where you'll be involved. You won't be involved in maybe an advisory committee. You won't be involved in this capacity. We're looking to be involved in a greater capacity because these administrators and these teachers and these learning institutions have our children for a greater portion of the day than most of us parents get to see them. So I want to feel comfortable giving my child to you and knowing that you are fostering the best learning experience that you can with them, so that when I bring them home and they come home to me, we can continue that. Not so when they come home and they have homework, I have to, not that I mind, go over their homework with them again because they didn't ask questions or because they weren't given the opportunity to ask questions.
I think more than that also. You're right, you're absolutely right. But my argument is the following, that the state has mandated, before they even appointed a special master for New London, this because many schools in New London, at least 4 or 5 of them, did not make an adequate progress toward achieving goal under the No Child Left Behind rule. The state mandated that many of these schools, including the high school, Benny Dover, Winthrop, and such, develop what's called the Governance Council. The Governance Council, by definition, is a way to get to involve parents. It is a council that is formed by teachers who were elected by the teachers' body in that school, by a certain number of parents who were supposed to be elected by parents from that school, 2 community members who are supposed to be elected by that teacher-parent group, and in addition to the principal of that school, and in the case of high school, there will be also a student representative. And so that governance council is supposed to play an active role, not just rubber stamping budgets and policies, but actually advising the principal on certain ways and looking closely into the improvement plan of the school. How does that relate to the budget? How does the policies that you're implementing, what are the changes? You listen to the teachers, what are their concerns, what are the best ways to educate our kids, and then you hold the school kind of accountable, because now you belong to that. I mean, you have to have, and you look at the measures that you can measure against in terms of achievements, so you can say, did this work or this didn't work, and what are the reasons that these are working and these are not working. So you can. So my answer to you: we must be involved in developing this SOP plan, because that's what the state says, that the parents have to play an active role in solving and solving this crisis that we're in.
And I'll tell you from a teacher's perspective how invaluable it is to have parents come in and help you out, in a sense, with the job, because it isn't uncommon that come November that you're starting to feel in a classroom, oh, I'm starting to get an idea who these 25 people are and how they learn. It just takes a long time to figure it out, how individuals, how it is that they process information and how it is that they best take information in. And so when you have parents that are there, and part of that process, letting you know, well, this is what happens at home, and I'm telling you, don't let my child fool you with this, because this is really how it works. I mean, it's just invaluable. It saves a lot of time. And when we talked a little bit before about a culture change. And so we can't deny that there is a culture within New London, and so therefore no one would better know that culture than the people who are in it. And so therefore listening to the voices of those of us who are our parents in that, it's important to hear what we need in specific versus what other communities might need.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've gotten to the point, right, where we have the status quo, and the question is, are we going to continue with the status quo? And I feel like in my short time here, we see small incremental changes as if that's going to actually have an impact on the greater organization or the structure or the focus. But the reality is that we need a rudder change, and I think that's a very hard pill to swallow. And until we're ready to swallow that hard pill, then we're going to keep trying to do little things here and there. Okay, let's add the governance council. Okay, that's cute, But until we're ready to make a hard rudder change, we're not going to see changes, and that's just kind of how I feel. So when you
I hear that language the special master is using, and not wanting those incremental changes, that doesn't really do what we need. That we need those larger scale changes. But I think, therefore, there is that leap as far as what it means to involve us. I mean, it is hard. It is a culture change, but we do need that big shift that you're talking about.
And I think, when you do things like a big rudder change and you're doing things that haven't been done before, I mean, people's feelings get hurt. People are not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're where we're at right now because we haven't done those things.
Yeah.
So.
And we should be extremely uncomfortable when our schools are, all except for Nathan Hale, considered not meeting the criteria, considered failing schools, that we should be uncomfortable enough to be willing to make that change.
Right. I mean, I spoke with someone who was a little concerned about certain statistics that came out from a state report. And the reality is we shouldn't be upset that I was publishing statistics, right? Because if we're upset about the statistics, which are hard facts, then we have a problem. Because what we should be talking about is how are we going to improve those statistics, not being upset because those statistics are published.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that gives a small glimpse about where we're at and how people are sometimes resistant to change or, these rudder shifts.
I think that's a great indicator whether change is going to take place or not, that if we're willing to see that those changes need to be made to begin with, because if we can't face them, then how it is it that we're going to address them?
And like you said before, Chris, there is no silver bullet to this. I mean, there are different pieces, and beside from the culture change. And I think, to me, one of the biggest indication of where we definitely need a culture change is that the attitude that when you walk into a New London school, it's almost like you're supposed to lower your standard. You're supposed to expect loud noises. You're supposed to expect students are out of order and out of control. You're supposed to expect when you go to a meeting that parents are not there. I mean, these are all indications of that there must be something that changes. And I think it's not impossible. Why is this? Is because we do have schools who are in New London, who are educating mostly kids from New London who are succeeding. When you walk into that school, you feel there is an upbeat, there is a different attitude. And so, when you compare, for example, and I know a lot of people hate this comparison between Isaac and Benny Dover. And you look closely at those numbers, it is the difference between the two is amazing. This is supposedly an art school versus a regular middle school. But when you look at the reading, writing, math, and science, the kids from Isaac beat the kids in New London by a whole lot. It's not just 10% or 20%, but the difference is huge. One of the main reasons they say, well, because kids who go to the public school in New London, most of them, or at least a big chunk of them, are kids who come from a household that doesn't speak English, or they speak two languages, or something of this sort. So I looked even closer to the kids at Isaac who speak Spanish at home. I found that those kids actually beat the kids who speak only English, in reading. Which is amazing to say that. So this is an indication for us that if you want a bilingual kid, actually that is an asset for you. It's not a liability. If we know how to use it and how to motivate these kids and these families, they will actually soar in terms of results. I understand that Isaac as a charter school is not the same. It is run different model.
I'm glad you said that.
But
that you understand
absolutely,
that, because
I do.
The funding is different, and if you can't work with less. You said that in the beginning.
Right.
That we've been flat funded. Those that don't know, flat funding doesn't mean that you just getting the same amount of money and you're actually getting less money because of what you said.
Right.
Salaries are going up. Medical benefits are going up. Isaac is run on a different program. It's run on a different budget. It's run on different money. I mean, that's something
It's run actually on less money.
but it's run on grants.
Right.
So, and some of the students from Isaac, in all fairness, are New London students. They come from New London. So you can't really say when they go to New London or the kids at New London, meaning Benny Dover Jackson, because some of the kids at Isaac are New London kids. So I think I'm just going to ask you to be sensitive when you're talking about the kids, because we don't know what kids are watching this show, and hopefully a lot of them are. we want the kids to know and understand that we're supporting them. We're not
Right.
saying they're doing bad. We're not saying that they're failing. We are talking about this institution as a whole. So I just want you to be sensitive
Absolutely,
in
you're,
that
you're
aspect.
absolutely right. I mean, of course, when we're talking about the results and these kids are scoring better in reading or math or stuff, we're not trying to put down any kid versus actually we're saying what my argument is actually saying that the system is failing these kids because all of these kids, they come from the same neighborhood, from the same town. There is no way that we should allow them to have this much difference just because one kid goes to this school, the other kid goes to the other school. And so exactly, you're absolutely right. These kids should have the same level of education, the same level of care, the same level of funding and resources that they need to succeed, and we know that they can succeed. It's just the system is failing them, and that's primarily New London and the adults, and part of it is the parents' fault, and we have to be courageous enough to say that we share the responsibility for it.
accountable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you.
As far as those expectations, and even myself, who works with kids and have great experiences with them, last fall when I went into the high school for some recruitment for Fresh, it was my first experience, I think, being in the high school during the daytime hours, and I think I myself expected something rowdier and was so pleasantly surprised at the groups of kids. I was there in the cafeteria, which is, massive numbers of kids during a free open time, in a sense, to talk and to whatever, and I was able to go from table to table and talk to kids, and they were fantastic young people. There were faces that I recognized just from going in a couple of times from one, I maybe was recruiting 4 times at the high school, and from those few experiences of being in there, there was a young fellow who kept greeting me, and they're definitely a lovely group of young people. And you're right, the problem is in what we expect from them and what we service with. If we're not servicing, do you know of some of the cuts that have been made because of the flat funding, particularly having to do with graduation and careers and moving on into into college?
Yeah, I think the one that has gotten the most spotlight is the AVID program. And I went to the Board of Ed meeting to speak on it, and this was a collaboration between the colleges, all 3 colleges that are in our city that have students that want to work in our community, and we tried to identify where in the high school the colleges could best engage based on their resources. And so we worked for a hard year getting these college students in the classroom on a consistent basis. We were following the progress through metrics, analysis, surveys, and because of the funding climate, it got cut. And so our point was not about don't cut AVID, okay? But I think that the greater question and the greater discussion should be, if you're going to cut something, then what are you showing, or how are you showing that this specific program should be cut? What are your metrics? Because if we had a program that did have metrics and was showing progress, well then show me the other programs that are outperforming this one.
Right.
And I don't know if that's actually happening. Maybe it is, but it's not being communicated. And I think what was a little troubling was that, it's the engagement from the colleges has been very fragmented over the years, and I thought what we did was bring the colleges together. And so when you finally get them to the table to give resources and to play nice and to do these things in a coordinated effort, and then you cut it without kind of saying anything or preparing or having kind of some type of contingency, well then why is that college or why is that organization going to come back to the table? Because they gave it once, and then why are they going to keep doing that if every year something else is going to get cut? So again, it goes back to this idea of how, what are your metrics to show why these certain programs are getting cut over another? And so, the AVID was one of them.
Do you know I don't know if this is a rumor, but do you know if the Career Center has been cut?
It has. That was a position, from my understanding, that was based on a grant. And so, that funding's not there anymore. And so, again, now to give credit, obviously, to the high school, they're doing, a lot of work under enormous pressure, less resources. So I think sometimes we look at it and say, oh, maybe they're not doing their job, but we just have to understand the amount of pressure that they're under right now, given the resources. And I think that's where groups like this come in to say, hey, well, that was a little too far, or that's a little extreme, and this is something that we value, or this is the statement that you're making, and we need this back in. But yeah, so the Career Center was one other place that took a hit. So.
And I think maybe we should discuss this after the break, but I think the lack of strategy, the lack of a vision, and you talked about, show me the other programs that are outperforming this one, and where does that fit in your strategy? That makes a big difference if you have a strategy, and that is one of the things that we welcomed
Great place to begin after.
Right,
Yeah.
and so our group kind of welcomed at first, with reservation, that the appointment of a special master, because when we attended that presentation, we saw that he had a plan. He had, a 3-year strategic operating plan. And so we said, at least now when we want to talk and criticize the education system in New London, at least we have some kind of blueprint where we can say, maybe this part here is missing, or support, so positively, kind of like critique, and not being there. So this is what we said. I mean, we welcome this because when you come and you say you want to cut the position of, or I spoke about this before, when you have 2 teachers who are teaching French, and so you want to cut one of them because your budget cannot, handle 2 of them. The hammer came down and they eliminated the teacher who was actually more experienced, a much better teacher, who was actually allowing the school to offer 3 levels of French, not just 2. And they kept that's what I'm saying. It's just not saying that the other teacher is bad, but just saying that where does this fit within your strategy? Do you value language or you don't? I mean, you have to take all these in consideration when you make these kind of cuts and these adjustments. So,
Good place to break.
I guess.
I'm going to go to a community calendar.
Okay. Virginia, you're going to move your head a little towards Munjie while. The bottom one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's not on the screen already? On the TV?
1 minute.
Is it on the TV?
Go ahead.
It's been saved.
You're on.
Okay, so I just want to begin by reminding viewers to call in if you've got something that you'd like to talk about with us on this topic. The number is 860-440-3154. Again, 860-440-3154, and we'd love to engage in a lively conversation of disagreements or whatever it is that you have to say. So.
And actually, we in doing this show, first of all, we'd like to, before we forget, to thank the Greens for giving us this platform
Yes,
to
thank
speak
you.
about
Definitely.
New
Thank
London.
you.
Parents Advocates. We definitely would like to expand this group, and so far we held a couple of meetings, one at the public, both of them at the New London Public Library.
The first
we are-
meeting was in Spanish and English, which was
Right.
fantastic, so that did
which I
show
missed because I was in Tunisia.
but that did
vacation.
show our need for the diversity and the language, like you said, being one of those obstacles, but it's not an obstacle within our group, at least for those two languages that's what we have right now. We also have Arabic,
French.
Do we have any other languages? Anyone out there
I'm
who
sure there is. I mean,
needs
there's,
another?
there's a lot of languages that are spoken in our
Yeah.
community, and I think the more we expand the circle, we would like to invite other friends to come. And most of our discussions center around, bean and leaf and coffee and sitting down and having discussions.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about that. I mean, I would like to go back to,
Right.
you weren't calling it philosophy, but I wanted to talk about that. But I would like to go to just thinking about having families get involved, having people get involved in New London Parent Advocates or get involved at the New London Public Schools, because that's what we're about. It's not necessarily joining our group, but it's about being there at Board of Ed meetings, at open houses, at whatever it is, those issues that we have at the School Governance Council, at the PTOs, or whatever they're called now. They have a
Right.
slightly different name. But I was thinking about what it is, why it is that people are involved or do not get involved. And I was thinking, as members of the group individually, I think it'd be interesting to think about what it is that we get out of it to get involved. I mean, it's easy to say the attempt to do the selfless, because I want to help kind of a thing, but there is something that one gets out of it as well. I happen to enjoy our Bean and Leaf meetings. I happen to enjoy being able to get someone else's perspective and think that I'm not the only one who sees it that way, and just so there is something that we get out of it as well. What is it that you guys get out of it?
Well, I'll share one story. It's not particular to the Parent Advocates, but it's about a parent that I have in our program. And so, we do financial literacy for parents and the students and stuff. And so this one parent had gone up to Eastern Connecticut. Her daughter was accepted, and they had an orientation for the parents. And so they're asking questions, and this parent is answering the questions, and then answering the questions of the parents that were asking questions. And so finally the facilitator from Eastern Connecticut State was like, how do you know all this stuff? And so she's like, well, I'm in this great program in New London. And but the point is that now this parent, whenever we have something going on, and her daughter's gone to college, and whenever we have anything, she's there back at our office engaging. And so I think that once parents feel empowered, they want to keep feeling empowered, and they want to empower others. And so I think that that's what this is about.
Getting a sense of empowerment.
Absolutely.
And a base that you can act from
And
afterwards.
because it's, at that point it was just about getting her daughter in college, but now she also has, 2 younger age children, and maybe she wants to engage now with, a group like this, or follow another issue or whatever it is, but she had that one feeling of empowerment. She knows what that feels like, and now she wants to kind of keep that going, so.
And that's I'll just add on to that. Just being empowered and feeling empowered is a wonderful feeling. It's something that you can feel good about, that you were able to advocate for your child, or that you were able to approach another parent and say, I feel the same way, or I'm having the same issue. Let's get together and discuss it and figure out how we can come up with a solution. I mean, that's great, and hopefully, well, I know in the future we're going to plan on having some education, based on budgets and more empowering topics, finances and things of that nature. So I would love for you to be able to come, to our group and teach us about this finance class that you gave her, or maybe something else. Or she could come, and she could let us know. I think that would be great, because that's what we need as parents, to be empowered, so that our children will learn from us, this is what it takes, and this is what we can do and what we need to be successful.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I was born and raised in Tunisia. I'm going to look at the camera because I want to talk to people who are missing out on this group. I think for me, growing up in Tunisia, obviously, and graduated high school from there, I've been active. I always went after causes and got in trouble for it sometimes. But through advocacy, through joining a group like the New London Parents Advocates, you will get the camaraderie, you will get the sense of community, you will get the sense of empowerment, but you also get the jokes when we have the debriefing the next day about the Board of Ed meetings. You get the best jokes, you get the best friends, you get the best, kind of tricks that you learn of the trade. You learn new techniques and new tools. We even were talking about public speaking, how to be effective when you go out in front of the Board of Ed and try to use that 3 minutes to your advantage, how to make your point across, wearing the red shirts, that makes that sense of belonging. I mean, there is a host of things that you will gain, obviously, from any kind of advocacy, but because this is in New London Parents, it comes with a whole lot of other social candies, if you will. We talked about our kids and the issues they go with. Right. And Regina now, she has, on top of her kids, like, you need more kids. You have a host student from Italy that she's. So this is a place where we can also exchange resources. I know some parents in our group that if their kid cannot make it to soccer game, or if my kid cannot make it to soccer practice, I know I can call on them or text them and they can swing by and pick them up. So this truly gives you that sense of community, and that's exactly what we are seeking, what we're after, that shift of the way we look at New London. Once we really convince ourselves first, and have that manifested in our behavior and the way we approach our friends and our neighbors and our classmates, then truly that's when we're going to start making this big shift that you are seeking into the way we look at education, and hopefully, and I believe that is the way even to reverse the trend and the decline in terms of revenues and tax issues and all the other host of problems that we see in New London. I think using education as the catalyst for that is the way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and it fits perfectly into a show that's called Thinking Green.
Absolutely.
If you think about social movements and where we tend to be going right now, if you're thinking of like local food and local movements, I mean, that's definitely what it's about. It's coming back to what our community is, and taking advantage of those connections and all the advantages that come with that, the understanding where your food comes from, the understanding who the people are, who, thinking of local money, of giving back to your community and knowing where everything cycles. And this is definitely a part of it. My daughter now has this great playmate, your youngest daughter, they've been playing together, and it's making those connections and putting our efforts within our local community.
I have to inject this disclaimer toward the end of the show. We absolutely value the Green Party. We absolutely value them giving us the platform to speak. But it's very important to let other parents know that we are not a political organization. We are not affiliated with the Green Party, the Democrats, the Republicans. We welcome anyone who thinks they can contribute to the betterment of education in New London, period.
But thank you,
No
the
matter
Greens.
what. Absolutely.
And next week, once again, Rana Stuller will be hosting, and the guests are Dot Nielsen and singer-songwriter Kayla Farnham. So thank you.
How could parents that are watching the show get involved? Do we have a next meeting, or is there a phone number?
What is it? Oh.
Well, we talked about changing
Yeah,
it.
we will announce the change tomorrow. Check your public library and the other groups, but also we have a New London Parents Advocates Facebook page.
Facebook.
You
Yes,
can-
that's a great
Like us
we-
on Facebook.
Yes, New London Parents Advocates.
Parents advocates.
Yes,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
That was great. Excellent, guys.
Now you're clear.
That was good. Yeah.
1 minute.